So I'm Marty Sunlin from the Bureau of Laboratories, and you're going to be hearing Kristine Smith and Kevin Rodeman today speaking about some of the traditional methods as well as some of the new methods through GHOST, which are allowing us to bring into the future not only the diagnostics, but also the tracking and traceability of these patients so that we can provide more. One of the things that I wanted to mention to all of you, both in the room and on the distance webinar, is that at the Bureau of Laboratories, we do not charge for testing. So please consider us as a partner for you so that you may be able to get any of your hepatitis testing needs. And you'll hear about some of those tests today. We do provide reflex testing. So when you need to go from the serological into the RNA, you're able to do that right in-house. And if you ever have any questions, you can always call our phone line at 517-335-8063. And that takes you into our main bureau line, and they'll help get you connected to any technical experts or testing and shipping experts that you may need. We do offer a courier service from all birthing hospitals in the state of Michigan in the Lower Peninsula. In the Upper Peninsula, we have prepaid shipping labels that will overnight packages to us. And then our local health departments most of them have a courier service with us. If you're from an area that doesn't, we can get you prepaid labels. Just call us and let us know. So with that, I want to turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk about some of the traditional things.
Morning. So our viral serology unit at the Bureau of Laboratories is the unit that does all the hepatitis serology testing. And so I'll go through a few of those tests and explain those to you. So for hepatitis testing at the Bureau of Laboratories, we run hepatitis B surface antigen, hepatitis B surface antibody, hepatitis C antibody, and hepatitis A IgM antibody. And we run the EIA, which is the enzyme immunoassay on all of these. And the very basic principle of an EIA is when you take antigen, which is part of the virus, and antibody, which is the immune response. And when those bind for this assay, it causes a color change. And the intensity of that color change is proportional to the amount of antigen or antibody in the patient specimen. And we run those on the Evolise instrument from Biorad. And there is an absorbance reading, which is measured as an optical density, and there's a cutoff for each test that determines whether or not the result is positive or negative. So hepatitis B surface antigen is the first to appear when someone is infected with hepatitis B. If we get a positive screen, then we run a confirmatory test, which is a neutralization assay. Any reactive specimen that shows greater than or equal to 50% neutralization is a confirmed positive. A recently vaccinated person may show a positive result for up to 18 days after vaccination. And here are our possible results, absent and present. I did put our report comments on each screen. I'm not going to necessarily read all those, but those are there for you to refer to later. Also, a lot of times we have submitters that will order hepatitis B antibody when they want to know if there's a current infection. Really, the hepatitis B surface antigen is the test to order if you want to know if a patient is currently infected. Hepatitis B surface antigen will appear during infection, and the antibody will appear later on after the infection or after vaccination. So the hepatitis B antibody test is part of our student immune panel. And so again, this test indicates immunity or either after vaccination or after infection. And the absorbance readings are compared to the mean absorbance of our 10 milli international unit per ml calibrators, which are compared against the World Health Organization's reference standard. So anything at or above this level indicates immunity either in response to infection or due to vaccination. And then here our possible results are absent, present, or equivocal. So not everyone produces antibody after vaccination, but the response rate is pretty high at about 90 to 95%. And a patient should reach seroprotection, meaning a result of present, by about 1 to 2 months after the completion of a vaccine series. Although recommendations are not to test all those that receive routine vaccination, but only those in certain high-risk groups. And according to CDC, immunity is likely to be maintained even if antibody begins to decline below this level. So the results in an equivocal range may indicate a low level of antibody. Specimens are retested at the Bureau of Labs before reporting, and if results repeat, specimens may be recollected and retested, especially if poor specimen integrity is suspected. Patient may need to be revaccinated. So this is kind of a busy slide. But notice that the hepatitis B surface antigen is represented in pink, and the surface antibody is represented in green. So hepatitis B surface antigen can be detected at an average of 1 month after exposure to the virus. All recovered patients, which are about 80 to 95% of adults, should have a negative surface antigen test by approximately 15 weeks after symptom onset. But those with chronic infection will remain positive for the surface antigen for longer than 6 months. Infants and children are at greatest risk for developing chronic disease. And then the hepatitis B surface antibody appears during convalescence and usually after the disappearance of the surface antigen and also after vaccination. It's not really typical to see the surface antigen and antibody present at the same time, but we do see that in about 1% of patient specimens. So at the Bureau of Labs, we also test for hepatitis C antibodies. The presence of hepatitis C antibodies does not constitute a diagnosis of hep C, but it might indicate a recent, past, or chronic infection. And a non-reactive test does not exclude the possibility of exposure to hep C, since it can take several weeks to develop antibodies after becoming infected. So all reactive specimens, if shipped frozen or on cold packs, will automatically receive HCV PCR testing. So it's very important to ship cold so that RNA can be detected if it is present. We generally don't run PCR testing on specimens that are sent at room temperature. So you can see here our possible results are non-reactive and reactive. And then here's a photo of our kit 8A. For submission of specimens for hepatitis C testing. Just note the 2 tubes that are there. We asked for 2, one for serology testing, and if that's positive, we have the other one that can remain cold and untouched for PCR testing. This is the algorithm that we follow at the Bureau of Labs. So again, any specimen submitted cold that tests antibody positive will be tested by PCR. And then a positive PCR test is evidence of current infection, since a positive antibody test alone cannot distinguish that. For hepatitis C, rarely antibodies can be detected in as little as a couple of weeks, but according to CDC, just under half of people infected with the virus will have a positive antibody test by 10 to 11 weeks, and most will by 15 weeks. All should present with antibodies by 6 months after exposure, and antibodies should remain there for life. HCV RNA can be detected as early as 1 to 2 weeks after exposure, and about 80% of people are chronically infected, which is indicative of persistent HCV RNA. So finally, our last antibody test that I'll be talking about for hepatitis is the hepatitis A IgM antibody. And due to Michigan's outbreak situation, BOL has asked clinical laboratories that get a positive IgM antibody result at their institution submit samples to us for PCR and genotyping. We currently are using the CDC's assay, but we do not send official reports for this testing due to this being a research use only test, and its use is intended for epidemiological purposes and not for diagnosis. A positive hepatitis A IgM sample with a negative PCR could be explained by recent vaccination. Vaccinated patients can remain positive for up to a few weeks after vaccination. Also, according to our kit manufacturer, IgM antibodies can be detected in individuals for more than a year after true infection. So, and that may be after the virus has already cleared. Some studies have shown that specimen integrity is relatively short with hepatitis A, even though it's a pretty hardy virus. So again, shipping specimens frozen or at least refrigerated is very important for detecting virus if it is present. And again, our possible results are absent, present, and equivocal. And these interpretation comments aren't currently on our reports. We may decide to add those. In most infected people, hepatitis A IgM antibody is detectable 5 to 10 days before the onset of symptoms and declines to undetectable levels within 6 months. Although, again, it's possible to see IgM for 1 year after infection. And the Bureau of Laboratories only offers the IgM testing at this time. IgG testing may be important for determining immune status, but it's currently not offered by our manufacturer. And so we get a lot of calls, we get a lot of questions of people asking, how do we access our website? They want to get test request forms, specimen collection, submission information, and our A to Z. And so I usually click on that long URL. But really, if you just go to michigan.gov/MDHHS lab, which I found out this week, that's the direct way to go. You can also Google it using these other methods. I think my arrow showed up in the wrong spot. And then to request specimen kits, just call our shipping at 517-335-9040. That's all I have for you. Anybody have any questions, or you want to wait till later? Okay. Not sure how to get to yours, Kevin.